Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Toledo. We are starting today with sad news again. We received word of the passing of longtime Rotarian John Ehrman after a battle with pancreatic cancer. John was a member for nearly 40 years, served as the Community Services Chairman for many. Please keep John's family and loved ones in your prayers during this time. We will share the obituary when it becomes available. This time we ask for a moment of silence in John's memory. At this time, I'd like to ask Kelly Train to come to the podium to deliver the reflection and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in prayer today. The speaker, the presentation today has special meaning in my heart for a special story that I hold. God of endless love, ever caring, ever strong, always present, always just. Join us to our own suffering, the pain of all who have been hurt, in body, mind, and spirit, by those who betrayed the trust placed in them. Hear the cries of our brothers and sisters who have been gravely harmed, and the cries of those who love them. Soothe their restless hearts with hope. Steady their shaken spirits with faith. Grant them justice for their cause, enlightened by your truth. Comfort our hearts, heal your people's wounds, and transform brokenness into wholeness. Grant us the courage and wisdom, humility and grace to act with justice. Breathe wisdom into our prayers and labors. Grant that all harmed by abuse may find peace and justice. We ask this in your mercy. Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we begin our meeting, I'd like to thank Danbury Realtors and Rotarian Max Reddish. I think I saw Max around here somewhere. Max, thank you very much for being this month's meeting sponsor. We appreciate your support. Round of applause for Max. Thank you. There he is. He's all the way in the back. If anybody has any guests that they would like to introduce, please come to the floor mic at this time.
President Kevin and my fellow Rotarians, it's my pleasure to introduce my friends. Here's Sue Wingate. We have been friends since we were about this big, which I was at one point.
18 months old.
It's a few years ago. Sue is the owner of two businesses, actually possibly a third, too. Water to Wine venue and hall up in Ida, and also Wingate Stables in Ottawa Lake.
Awesome. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, President Kevin and fellow Rotarians. With me, I have my friend, Kevin, who's from Manahan. He's the Director of Communications and Development.
Awesome. Kevin, welcome.
Good afternoon, President Kevin. I have with me, and fellow Rotarians, I have with me today Kate Sommerfeld. Kate is our new president of the Greater Toledo Community Foundation, so please welcome her.
Kate, thank you for being here. Congratulations.
It's my honor to, can you all hear me? Sorry, that was weird. Present my guest today. Erin is with Moms Demand Action, and she's also a representative of Owens Community College.
Awesome.
Sorry,
thank
Erin
you for being
Kramer.
here. All right, Karen, just keep on walking up here. I'm going to invite Karen to the podium for an update from the Peace Committee regarding Intentional Acts of Kindness Week.
So this will be a brief announcement, but I am really excited to say that from the Peace Committee, we are going to be designating the week of October 29th through November 5th as Intentional Acts of Kindness Week. You will see some more information this week in the Spoke about it. I'm just being intentional with your kindness, so leading up to the election. So I just wanted to say, everybody be kind. Thanks.
And we are going to start that one day early on October 28th with our Rotary Service Above Self Day. So a great way to kick off that week early with the service project. We'll have some more information on those in the coming weeks. But check with your committee chairs to see what projects they're working on, and we'll make sure everybody gets signed up for a project that day. All right, if I could have Dr. Shanda Gore and Emily Zarecki come to the podium for an update from the membership committee.
All right, so we were supposed to build this up, but the clicked all the way through. So anyway, so thank you and hello, fellow Rotarians. At last September's report, we had 319 members, but I am glad to report that we now have 330 members. Yes, yes. And that's with a number in the pipeline. So with your assistance and the great work of Jackie and Karen, the needle is not only moving out and up, but climbing steadily. Since July 1, we've also invited 45 guests have been part of our house. And remember, we all need to go back to each of those guests and talk to them about Rotary. You are the ambassador for them. Take the next step and provide a link for the application. Make sure they are introduced to Karen, who we all seen today. Karen, raise your hand one more time. Woo. Okay. Talk to them about service projects. Invite them out and the work we are doing and how Rotary can benefit them. As members, you will start seeing DAC-DB system tasks. Now, if you don't know what that is, that means you may not have logged in a long time. Anybody logged in? Anybody know what DAC-DB is? Okay, this is good. All right. So you'll start to see some follow-ups about your guest on that. Please check your emails and please respond. And so, as I mentioned last month, our Olympic run has begun. The winners will be the top 3 members who have successfully served as sponsors and gotten guests over the finish line between July 1 and December 31st. Now, let me preface and say this, Toledo Rotary ambassadors, administrators. Jackie and Karen are not part of this. They're not part of this, which gives us all a chance to win and go for the gold, okay? But they're also doing so much work, so I want to acknowledge that they are doing a lot of that work. Now, see, I just can't. So far, the race looks like Kevin Mullen is on his way to gold. All right, so he is going for the gold. We need to beat Kevin. We need to beat Kevin, okay? Yes, I'm on my way to silver. I'm trying to get there, but I want you to beat me too. And Candace Harrison and Whitney Keeler, thank you, are tied for bronze right now. Remember, the deadline to qualify for a medal is December 31st. Please do all you can to do those follow-ups, and let's go for the gold. Now, just want to acknowledge, you may have seen a number of guests with cameras and notepads and people with microphones. We welcome these special guests and hope that they will become members. Hello, media. We hope you will become members. We had a wonderful uptick in media coverage since July 1, and this is from the great work of my vice chair and chair of the Public Relations Committee, Emily Zarecki. So I want to acknowledge her and thank Emily.
Thank you. And from the membership engagement side, want to remind all of you we have a happy hour next Thursday, October 17th at Casual Pint. So please, if you have guests you would like to bring to that, that's another great opportunity to bring them to a smaller, more intimate gathering of Rotarians. So mark your calendars for October 17th at the Casual Pint on Secor, usually about 4:30-ish. We all start arriving. And then in November, Holly Trolley 2.0 is coming. We did this last year, so this will be held November 21st. It will be in lieu of happy hour for November. And we are looking for sponsors. And I see a number of you that were there last year, so hopefully you will join us again. And if you are interested in sponsoring the event, there is a form on the Rotary website. So check that out and make plans to join us. And we also have another Women in Rotary event in the works, so more to come on that one.
And just the last plug, we do have a membership committee meeting next week. So it's not today, it's next week at around 1:05 to give you some time, because I know we are going to have a lot of guests next week. For those that are part of my membership committee, we hope to see you all there. So thank you.
All right, last week was a busy one for the Toledo Rotary Club. Thanks to those who volunteered for the annual Zoo Day on October 1st. Can I see a show of hands of who was there for Zoo Day? Give them a round of applause. Thank you very much. We partnered again with Glendale Fieldbox School and the Interact Clubs from St. Francis and St. Ursula. It's really cool to see the connection that happens between specifically the high school students and the students at Glendale Fieldbox, and it was great to be a part of that. So let's direct you to the screen. We got a quick recap of what happened. There's a lot of people there. Also on Friday morning, we celebrated the first cycle of the Foundation Advisory Committee meeting, where we recommended approval for over $120,000 in grants to be dispersed to 14 different charities. That is incredible. And then Friday afternoon, we went out to Ottawa Park, kind of show of hands of who participated in the first ever Toledo Rotary Futures Golf outing. Thank you all for being there. This was a great time. Dr. Durant brought his golf clothes. He kindly told us, and I know he's joining us on Zoom today because he's got a meeting at 1 o'clock that he's got to be there for. But he told us that when we asked him if he would want to putt, he said he doesn't swing iron, he just lifts it. So we appreciate, I think we had 8 students from Toledo Public Schools that were members of their golf program that were part of this, and about 18 Rotarians that were there as well. It was a great time and a great start to what we hope becomes a long-standing partnership between Toledo Rotary and some of the students at Toledo Public Schools. So thanks for everybody for being a part of that. Thank you to Ottawa Park for donating the golf for the students and for being a great host for that. Thank you to Lourdes University and Spartan Chemical for being sponsors of this. Again, we're very excited to see where this goes, and everybody left saying, get us the date for next year, we're in. So, and lastly, I always love seeing Rotarians in the news. Congratulations to our very own Raina Dawson, Vice Chair of International Services. I'm being recognized as the emerging leader by the UT College of Law. All right, let's get to today's program. It's my privilege to welcome Rotarian and the President and CEO of the YWCA of Northwest Ohio, Lisa McDuffie.
Good afternoon. Give me just 2 seconds to adjust accordingly. I'm not as tall as President Kevin, and to get my notes in order. I am honestly delighted to have the opportunity to spend some time talking with you about the programs and services of the YWCA, where we've been, a little bit about our history, but most importantly, about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, domestic violence. So let me begin by just kind of centering who we are and what we've done. Let me dispel a little rumor or myth. There are some people in this community, and even in the world, who believe the YWCA is the same as the other organization that begins with the same letter of the alphabet. We are not. That's a fine organization. I don't know if my friend Brad is in the room. They do marvelous work, but we are totally different. We were established totally separate times. We have a different mission and a different purpose. So let me jump right into it. First slide, please. Our mission is to work toward the elimination of racism and the empowerment of women. We're here to promote peace, justice, and freedom and dignity for all. That is a tall order even today in 2024, but imagine that charge in 1870, the year we were established. There were 7 women in Toledo who got together under the name of friendship. They gathered and no doubt talked about things that women talk about. But I assure you, just like today, when women get together, we saved the world. They started talking about societal ills not only in our community, but also across the world. In many, many states in America, there were WCAs popping up, Women Christian Associations. And these 7 Toledo women believed we needed a charter. So they became the WCA, they opened up the invitation, and within the first year, there were over 200 women who joined the movement. 3 women who were a part of the association who happened to be elderly, who happened to be homeless, asked the WCA for assistance. And the very first project in this history lesson is they created a home termed the Home for Friendless Women. That name changed, and it sits today on Indian Road just outside of Ottawa Hills, and it is the Sunset House Retirement Village. 4 years later, as if they didn't have enough to keep them busy, they believed we needed a city hospital. I'm sure back in the 1800s, with the moppy and muddy swamplands of Toledo, we were full of disease and illnesses. They wanted a city hospital, and our records show in August of 1874, the board unanimously approved an expenditure of an $8,000 house on Union Street. And 1 month later, that city hospital was opened. That hospital today is the Toledo Hospital. Yeah, wow. Amazing. But do you think the ladies stopped there? They didn't. Across the country, they began to notice that young women were coming from other countries. They wanted a different way to really begin their lives. They needed to learn English. They needed a trade to help them with economic prosperity. And the first YWCA, incorporating the young with the WCA, was birthed. All across the country, the charter was strong. In Toledo, our first program that remained with us, we didn't farm it out, was Newton Residency. It was for transient women that needed safety and security. We housed those individuals. We helped them learn to sew, which is what we were doing back then. We taught them English, and we sent them on their merry way. And the doors continue to cycle on and on and on. Now, that is amazing and impressive to me. But really what has grabbed my heart for over 28 years is the connection to being on the forefront of the civil rights era. Let me read you something. When I came to the agency 28 years ago, this is what I found. This came out in 1930. The YWCAs are to encourage its members to speak out against lynching and mob violence. You are to stand for interracial cooperation rather than segregation, and for the efforts to protect Black people, and we were called something else back then, but you are to do it to give them their basic civil rights. That was in 1930. Our records really talk about the civil rights movement around the 60s. I didn't mention this, but this was a group of white women. Traditionally, in the 1800s, 1900s, women didn't have a voice. They had traditional roles where they needed to be silent. They tended to their house and to their children. Except for these women, they were into good trouble. That is what brings me to love who we are. That is what I want you to walk away with, an understanding. There are differences between the Ys. There are today over 200 YWCAs across the country. We're in 120 countries, and our local YWCA reflects programs and services of the needs of the 21st century. Next slide, please. We do a variety of things, from childcare, resource and referral, covering 20 counties, to Healthy Connections that look to educate and bring about screenings for breast cancer. The mortality rate is through the roof for individuals who look like me, Black and brown. So we target those individuals and get them linked to healthcare providers to give them a leash on life. We have a youth development program. We do pregnancy prevention in Toledo Public Schools. At one point, Lucas County had the highest teen pregnancy rate in the state. We are now not number one, yay, yay. It's good to not be number one sometimes. But that work that we do is in partnership with Superintendent Durant and his ability to allow us to get in and help kids with healthy lifestyles. We have a racial justice department. We do all types of community public awareness that really is about exercising a race equity muscle. Most of those services are free of charge. We have a victim services department, and you'll hear a lot more about our domestic violence shelter and our rape crisis center in just a little while. And then the first program that I mentioned, that was once one of transient housing, we moved out of that business in 2005 for the sole purpose of providing permanent housing. A lot of times for a nonprofit organization, we do what our funders tell us to do. And back then, the funders said, you need to have transient housing, individuals need to come and go, but they cannot stay. We tried to implement that rule, and the ladies boycotted. They chose to not leave. We took it to our board. We moved into permanent supportive housing, and today we have 65 efficiency 1-2-bedroom units, and individuals have a lease and they can stay here forever. That is our work of the YWCA. I am so very proud of it. It allows us to not only serve over 29,000 individuals across our community, but it gives us the credibility to stand here and talk about what I'm getting ready to talk about. As the oldest and largest provider of domestic violence in this country, let me transition to the topic at hand. Domestic violence, in this next slide, please. Domestic violence in many instances is interchangeable with intimate partner violence. For the sake of making sure everyone is on the same page as I am, intimate partner violence really has a connection because there's a romantic relationship, okay? The individual knows that person. It may be a spouse, it may be a boyfriend or even a girlfriend, it may be current, or it may be former, okay? Understand that intimate partner violence can be episodic, it can be one time, or it can be over the course of a long time, multiple years. Next slide, please. Many people believe that there's a certain profile, but I'm here to tell you today there is no victim profile. Domestic violence is everywhere. Everywhere. Doesn't matter your age, your race, how much money you have in the bank or the lack thereof. Doesn't matter if you have a high school degree or if you are a PhD. Doesn't matter what side of the railroad tracks you grew up on. I promise you, They turn so they job. It's sometimes make so that the person can't get to work. They take so that they can't get to work. We once had a woman come into our shelter who had the disruption an assistant. And within days, the staff went to her to talk, and her money was gone. In tears, she shared, I went to the grocery store. I spent every penny of it buying candy, chips, gum, junk food. In tears, she said, do you know how difficult it is to the grocery store and not be allowed to let them pick what they want off the shelf? My husband never. But you have to understand, those of you who okay, but 31% of men in sexual violence by their have been raped by their intimate partner. 81% of women experience rape, stalking, or physical violence, and they have PTSD. We shared and talked to you earlier and said nearly half the women in this country are victims. 81% of them have PTSD. Okay? These are women who are in your places of employment. Okay? Now again, you heard there are some men, but according to statistics, it is a disproportionate number in terms of race. So understand that men also are subjected to domestic violence. They are not reporting. And women, even though I said, I guarantee you it's higher than that, the numbers itself is telling you how important this topic is to address. Okay? Next slide, please. At some point, they may be killed by their perpetrator. Okay? It's also important to understand that one of the biggest tactics that's used is the psychological aggression. And you can see the statistics that are up there in front of you, that the form that it takes is through unwanted phone calls and text messages. Next slide, please. I put this up here also again for perspective. Nearly 1 in 3 college women said that they've been in an abusive dating relationship. 1 in 3. Okay? And according to the CDC, 1 in 4 of the cases that make it to the state courts, there were children who witnessed the violence. So we're talking about individuals themselves that have experienced domestic violence, but we have innocent kids that are also watching it and seeing it. Okay? Next slide, please. This speaks to itself, all for itself. Survivors are 3 times more likely to engage in self-harming behaviors, 3 times more likely to have suicidal thoughts, 4 times more likely to attempt suicide, 3 times more likely to be diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. Those disorders look like depression, anxiety, and they come across in medical conditions that affect the digestive system, the nervous system, on and on and on. Again, these are our employees. Okay? I'm hoping I'm connecting the dots for you. Next slide, please. Let's talk a little bit about our own community. In Lucas County, according to the Ohio Attorney General, we had 8,716 domestic violence incidents. Those were 911 calls. Of that number, 8,243 were from the city of Toledo through TPD. If you read that slide, you may think you need to go running to the suburbs to get away from this. Remember I said, it doesn't matter the railroad track you lived on, which side, domestic violence is there. It is merely underreported in the suburbs. Okay? And I have to put a pin in this because there is a reason why people don't come forward. And this next statistic tells you, of the 8,700 DV calls, only 1,900 of them went forward to receive domestic violence charges. If it is not a severe physical abuse incident, it is very, very difficult to prove all of the other forms of abuse I talked about. Women, in their need to come forward, even men, they say, why? No one is going to believe me. And oftentimes that's what the perpetrator will tell them. Okay? You may live in a beautiful home. You may be all decorated with titles, and they will throw that in the person's face and say, who is going to believe you? I'm a big time, whatever. When people see us coming, we're hugged up, we're smiling, they're not going to believe you. What happens behind that closed door is the secret of shame. Okay? Next slide, please. In our domestic violence shelter, last year we served over 500 individuals. Of that number, 284 of them were children. Altogether, they stayed with us a total nights 16,754, and over 1,000 crisis hotline calls came in. Not everyone that calls our crisis line leaves their perpetrator or the situation. Sometimes we safety plan over the phone. We will help them assess the lethality, and it is up to the individual if they choose to stay. But it is a misnomer that you can't get help from the domestic violence shelter unless you come in. We are always here to help however the survivor needs us. Next slide, please. I'm going to try to move a little quickly. I'm running out of time. Why don't we go to the next slide? That's okay. So here's a couple of things that's really important for you, besides all the things that I've already said. 1 in 5 homicide victims were killed by their intimate partner. Okay? 1 in 5. Next slide. 33% of the women that died as a result of intimate partner violence died at their workplace. At their workplace. There are a ton of studies that have added up the cost of intimate partner violence, all the things that I've talked about, and the price tag is around $3.6 trillion. I love this analogy. It equates to 8 million days loss of work, which is equivalent to 32,000 full-time jobs. That's what domestic violence does for our employees. Next slide, please. Already talked a little bit about the cost of this, but breaking it down, the lowest cost of productivity, businesses pay upwards of $729 million each year as it relates to domestic violence. 80% of the employees' experience of domestic violence state they have a negative impact as a result of their DV when they walk into our work sites. There's an increase in healthcare costs. I already covered it. When you have internal injuries, when you have mental health issues happening as a result, somebody's paying that price ticket. And I need to say, think about the liability. The legal liability for our companies. We need a plan in place to help victims of domestic violence. Understand again that domestic violence may happen somewhere else, but it's walking into your doors. Okay? Our doors. Okay? There are people who will say to you, why do I need to get involved? It's happening somewhere else. I'm here to tell you you can't afford not to get involved. You just can't. Next slide, please. What I want to point out about this slide is in a study, 70% of U.S. workplaces stated they do not have a formal program or policy to address domestic violence. 1 in 4 of the large industries actually reported at least one incident at their work sites. Next slide, please. The same study that was done by the Cooperative Alliance to End Partner Violence said that 64 respondents identified themselves as victims in the work site. 57% of them said that they are distracted while they are at work. About 45% of them feared being discovered. Again, that's that keeping it a secret, but they feared people would know. And 2 in 5 were afraid of unexpected visits. But when this same survey was given to executive corporate leaders, 71% of them said there's no issue of DV in my work site. No issue. 74% stated that their abusers were harassing them while they were at work. But we don't know it. Okay? And also think about this very last bullet. 44% of the victims reported feeling as though they've been impacted. And these are people who work with victims. Side by side, it's even affecting them. Okay? So let me move very quickly to what you can do. And I see the clock. Just not enough time. This is October. It is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. What better time than now to seriously talk about domestic violence within your organization? It is not just the HR's responsibility. Let's go to the next slide really quickly. And let's go to the next slide. Let's skip over the recognizing it. But here's what you should know. Okay? It's really, really important. Oh, it looks like the slide's not progressing. But are we gonna go? Yep, that's perfect. It's important to make sure you have a comprehensive plan that addresses the prevention, intervention, and the response of what your company will do, okay? Now, you need to make sure that your staff stay in their lane. And what I mean by that is, this is serious work. It is dangerous. So you want to make sure staff understand what they should say versus what they shouldn't. You want to make sure that you are also creating an atmosphere of privacy and confidentiality. Next slide, please. Make sure your staff understand the pattern or the cycle. And I'm going to skip past some of this, but understand it is a cycle. And here's where you really should take note. I encourage you all today, if you are one of those executives that believe domestic violence does not exist, that you go back, excuse me, and you talk to your HR professionals, you talk to your middle managers, and assess what they know. Sometimes they know. They didn't know what it was called. Okay? And after you formulate that assessment, grab your team, however you want to comprise them, and develop a policy to address domestic violence within your organization. Make sure that plan covers things like confidentiality and everything I mentioned earlier. Make sure that plan includes a safe spot that individuals can come forward, that folks will not pass judgment, that they will not say things like, oh my God, I just can't believe that. Normalize it, because unfortunately 1 in 4 women are being affected and 1 in 7 men are as well. Okay? Never, never, never tell a person to leave. That maybe sounds a little contradictory based on what I'm saying, but telling a person to leave, the lethality goes up 7 times higher that they will not make it out alive. Refer them to EAP for counseling, refer them to the YWCA Domestic Violence Shelter. We are literally always here to help. And in putting that plan together, one of the most important things you need to do is communicate, communicate, communicate. Make sure that they know the signs and symptoms and everything we talked about, so that you create a culture that is inviting, and supportive of victims. At the same time, you're sending a strong message to perpetrators who may not necessarily know they are perpetrators if they're not exercising physical abuse, that this is wrong. And most importantly, somewhere down later in the slides, there are things that you can do, such as partnering with our organization. We are here to help train your staff, your HR people, to help you with a plan so that you save money, and most importantly, as far as I can tell, you can help save lives. Thank you so very much for your attention.
Yes, you are very welcome.
I'm getting out of your way.
No, you're good. You stay right there. So, Lisa, thank you very much. When the Rotary year started, we were having conversations with the program committee. I had sort of put forward a couple of things that were really important to me. One is hearing updates from the organizations that are most important to our community, and so we appreciate having you here to do that. I also wanted to hear from more Rotarians, and so we've got some great folks in this club doing incredible work, and we appreciate you being here. As a thank you, we have a copy of Historical Tales of Toledo, authored by past President Clint Mock. We're also going to make a donation in your name to the Polio Plus Fund to join Rotary International's efforts to eradicate polio. So thank you very much, Lisa.
I just say, for anyone who is interested in a copy of the PowerPoint, as well as numbers that are connected to our crisis line, my contact information is in the directory. Jackie has it, Karen has it, Kevin has it. Reach out, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. We've got some more great programs coming up in the next couple of weeks. Next Monday, October 14th, Dr. Durant will join us to talk about TPS's vision for the Scott Park project. On October 21st, we will be collaborating with Women of Toledo to host their He for She forum discussion, including our own Chuck Stocking is going to be on that panel, and it'll be moderated by Julia Hage, so we're very excited about that. On October 28th, we'll have our next Service Above Self Day. Sign-up forms for projects, as well as the form to get a free t-shirt, will be going out soon. And to start November, we'll be joined by Rotarian Justin Moore from the Area Office on Aging to discuss reimagining aging. I am feeling older and older every day, so I'm going to be paying attention during that one. So there are no committee meetings this afternoon. Thank you all for being here. Make it a great day. We are adjourned.